Just when you think it can't get any worse for Obama and Comey, even more starts coming out. Y'all, make sure you like the video. Follow for more updates.
The Department of Justice confirming it has received a criminal referral from DNI Tulsi Gabbard regarding bombshells that the Obama administration manufactured the Russia collusion narrative with Donald Trump, both before and after the 2016 election. The DNI told me initial intelligence showed Russia did not try to change the outcome of the election, and the Obama team knew that.
Shocker.
The knowledge was pulled from the president's daily briefing due to what they called updated guidance. The next day, top national security officials met with Obama's cabinet, where President Obama asked not if, but how Russia tried to upend the election. Here's then President Obama speaking from the briefing room back in 2016. Watch.
At the beginning of the summer, we're alerted to the possibility that the DNC has been hacked. And I immediately order law enforcement, as well as our intelligence teams, to find out everything about it. If you started seeing effects on the election, you might want to take this into account. We allowed law enforcement and the intelligence community to do its job without political influence. When we had a consensus around what had happened, we announced it, not through the White House, not through me, but rather through the intelligence communities that had actually carried out these investigations.
You couldn't lose because of the hacking.
I'm going to let all the political pundits in this town have a long discussion about what happened in the election.
Well, I think the former president used the term updated guidance. I think that's a fancy way of saying we changed the story and we did it for political reasons, because that's what it looks like. Never forget, there's 3 key dates here, Maria. December 9th is when they have this meeting in the White House. Clapper, Brennan, McCabe, Comey, the president, they're all there. And they say, okay, we're not going to accept the intelligence community assessment. We're going to change that. And President Obama was just alluding to that. And then you have the date January 3rd. A few weeks later, Chuck Schumer goes on one of the Sunday shows and says, talking about then President-elect Trump, he says, if you mess with the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. And then 3 days later, January 6th, they all go up to Trump Tower to give President Trump what he believes is his incoming defensive briefing as the new, as the president-elect. He thinks he's getting the normal defensive briefing. Instead, it's a setup. They go up there, talk to him about this, and then Comey tells him about the dossier that they already know is baloney. They know it's not true. Came from the Clinton campaign and everything else. But they brief him on it so that when that information gets leaked, it has added credibility, because now it was so important that the FBI talked to the president-elect. The press has got to report it. And off and running goes the Russia collusion false narrative for the next 2 years. It was all to undermine President Trump and his presidency. And God bless Tulsi for sending this to the DOJ. I hope they dig into this. I mean, I hope that they go after this, because I think this is what it was, a conspiracy to undermine the first term of President Trump.
Yeah, but look, at the time, the mainstream media went with it, hook, line, and sinker. And of course, much of the media blasted it across the world. Not here, of course. We saw through it right away and reported accordingly. Yeah. But, we've been calling for accountability now since then. It's almost 10 years, Congressman. So it now falls to AG Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel on whether or not anything will actually be done about it. What are the odds?
Yeah. Well, I think they are digging into this, and I think that the facts are strong. Here's some other evidence I think is important. This was a setup when they went up there on January 6th to Trump Tower and gave President Trump this briefing. It was a setup because a few weeks later they did the same thing to Michael Flynn, and Jim Comey then bragged about it. He said, when we went to the White House, he said we should have called the White House counsel. We should have let him know. We should have talked about this. He should have had a lawyer. All this should have been happening, but they just said, no, we thought it was a new administration. We could get in, we could get out, we could ask him questions. And there's even email correspondence amongst FBI agents from that time with General Flynn where they say, what's our goal? Are we trying to get him to lie? What's our objective here? They were setting up Michael Flynn just like they tried to set up the president of the United States. So this is what this whole operation was about. And again, let's hope that they dig into this and get get all this information out there. And if they can prove that there's a crime, I hope they move forward with it.
Now, is this why they raided Mar-a-Lago in 2022? Because they wanted these documents that were sure to be declassified?
I don't know. I do think when you go back to this, what we're talking about in 2016, 2017, it's about a 30-day time period between that December 9th meeting, 2016, and when they go up to up to Trump Tower and do this briefing. I do think this is when the weaponization of government really began. This is when they said, forget the election. We're going to try to undermine his presidency now. It's bad enough what they tried to do spying on his campaign during the 2016 campaign, but now they're trying to undermine him after he's already won. So I do think that's when it all began.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, it's interesting because the bulk of these declassified documents reveal that, number one, they knew that the dossier was fake. They knew it was made up. And also they revealed that the FBI did not really investigate former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton for her private email server. Right. So both of those things were happening at the same time. And it was during a contest between the two players, Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley said under Comey's leadership, the FBI failed to perform fundamental investigative work and left key pieces of evidence on the cutting room floor. So is that the gist of this 10 years later, that they tried to take down Trump by making up and manufacturing this story that was not true? They knew it wasn't true, but they pushed it through and let it go viral across the world, while at the same time completely ignoring her use of a private server who she kept in her house. And that was quite dangerous. Tell us why.
Yeah, they spied on an opposing party's presidential campaign. Yeah. And the evidence they used to get the warrant to spy on them was the Clinton campaign hired the law firm Perkins Coie, who hired Fusion GPS, a Democrat public relations firm, who hired a foreigner, Christopher Steele, who put together the garbage that became the dossier. And then they used that dossier to go spy on the other party's campaign. Meanwhile, they didn't go after Hillary Clinton for her emails and everything else she did from the server. That's what they did. And then when that didn't work, they said, now we're going to undermine his presidency by concocting this story, going up to Trump Tower, giving him the defensive briefing that he's supposed to get. President Trump thinks that's what's happening, when in fact it's a setup, just like they set Michael Flynn up 3 weeks later. That's what this group did. And again, Tulsi now is highlighting the underlying intelligence and said there was nothing there. But the meeting in Obama's office, they all decided to change that. No. We're not going to send out that initial intelligence community assessment. We're going to put together a new one that will allow us to do what I just described.
Well, look, Hillary Clinton was ultimately accused of mishandling highly classified information while using a private email server set up in her home. In 2016, the FBI suggested to the DOJ that she should not face prosecution ahead of the presidential election. So there, I guess they found religion on not getting involved in a presidential election. But look, at the end of the day, this has been an exhausting 10 years because of all of these shenanigans. Congressman, you know that. You've been living it. So have I. And the audience as well. So how is anybody supposed to trust that there's actual, real, work going on and honest work, and it's not all politics? I mean, you have to remove people, don't you? Who should be getting fired? Putting indictments and prosecutions aside, who needs to get fired and leave Congress for all of these lies?
Well, I do think that I've said this multiple times. I do think it's night and day compared to the kind of work you're seeing from Attorney General Bondi, Todd Blanche, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino at the Justice Department, compared to Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray. But this whole pattern that we've seen of going after President Trump, they spied on his campaign, then they tried to undermine his presidency with what I just described. Then it was the whole Mueller investigation for 2 years. Then in the 2020 election, it was the 51 former intel officials, Clapper, Brennan, signing this crazy letter saying it was a Russian information operation when they had the Hunter Biden laptop. They knew it was real. And then once that happens, when he's running again in 24, it's Alvin Bragg, Fonnie Willis, Jack Smith, and all the things they did there. It has never stopped.